to join us. My name is Paul Cannon. I'm the CTO of Fisher Technology. We've been bringing the TaskCentre product into the North American market for the last 10 years, and delighted to have Customer FX as one of our resellers. So appreciate the kind words from Scott and Brianna. But so let's dive in. I'm going to show you what TaskCentre is about, how it can be used with Infor CRM, and we'll look at a typical sort of customer lifecycle scenario where we go from acquiring a customer through an opportunity to and then perhaps looking at how we can service that customer through customer service and some other aspects of TaskCentre which I think you might find of interest. So first of all, let me just explain what TaskCentre is about. It's an application that sits alongside of SalesLogix. It's unusual as an add-in, and that it is not actually embedded in SalesLogix. It does sit in parallel, but that gives us the opportunity to use it with other applications. And in fact, TaskCentre sits perfectly nicely with SAP, with Salesforce, and also increasingly with e-commerce like Magento and Amazon. I'm not going to really get into those areas of functionality. I'm more interested in showing you specifically how it can add enormous value to your use of Infor CRM. But like I said, let's talk about maybe a customer life cycle. Let's think about what TaskCentre can do for us. Now, in your sales operation, it's often useful to get some visibility of our open opportunities to find out perhaps how long they've been open. So what we might want to do is have a weekly or periodic email go out to all our account reps to let us know which opportunities they have open, so they can just chase them up. So let me go ahead and just cue this up. Now, the concept of TaskCentre is that you're going to be building a process which runs automatically for you. Now, that could be based on a schedule. It could be based on some kind of trigger event. We'll get into that in a little moment. But what you can see happening on your screen now is we have a task running called List Open Opportunities, and it's extracting from the database all the open opportunities that we have. It's organizing them by sales rep and then sending out a series of emails. So you can see here that that process is now complete. In fact, what's happened is we've processed 95 opportunities. We've sent out 11 emails. So if I go to my inbox here, and I'm trying to be sort of email agnostic here, so this is just a Mozilla Thunderbird. But so you see here we've had a number of emails come in, going to each of our reps, listing the open opportunities that they have. But what I want to do is to shoot down here to the last one, which shows me that I've got an opportunity, oh, surprise, surprise, for Fisher Technology, which is due to close here on August 31st, 2016. Now, what I'd like to do is just pause for a moment just to think about, you know, how we got to this point. How did we actually generate this email? So let me show you behind the scenes what's going on. If I double click on the task, you'll be able to see the flowchart that's in play here. And you probably saw when the task actually executes, there were 3 steps. There was the query that went and selected the opportunities. We have a format step, which then collects the data and formats it into the email, and then send message to actually send out that email. And then if we were to have this set up as an automated task, perhaps to run to a schedule, then I'm going to put a schedule in the front. So the task comprises here of a series of steps, as we call them, and each of those steps is built up by using one or more of the tools that we have within the product. Now, let's just walk through some of these. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but just to give you a flavor of the kind of things you can do, and we will see some of these tools in action in a few minutes. But the key thing for us is being able to go out and get some data. Now, typically I'm going to do that by using some sort of database query. Now, you don't have to be a developer to be able to use TaskCentre or to build these processes. In fact, if we look at the query step here, you can see that in fact it's built using a graphical query builder, where all I need to know essentially is where the data in my database is going to be, which tables within sales logics, excuse me. And if you're comfortable and familiar with perhaps building your own reports or even building groups within the sales logic, and I apologize, I'm going to flip between Infor CRM and sales logics. Old habits die hard, so forgive me if I use those terms interspersed. I still call it sales logics, but I'll try to be politically correct and call it Infor CRM. But anyway, within the database we have accounts, we have opportunities, we have users, and they need to be linked together. So that's what this is representing. Now, for those of you who are a little bit more technical, what's actually happening is that we're generating the SQL query behind the scenes, which is what gets executed. But if you want to put your own SQL statements in there, you can. But for those of you who prefer building your query up using the graphical query builder here, you can do that. And I can add fields to this very easily. I can just drag and drop them in there to add the field to the query as I go along. And I can then test the query. I can see the data that's coming back. I can make sure that the criteria meet my needs, and if I'm happy, I can then proceed. Now, what's going on here is that the query tool is returning a data which I can then consume in one of a number of different format tools, one of which allows me to format as HTML so I can create my email. So if I go in here, this is how I lay out my email, not unlike the way you perhaps might lay out a merged document if you're using something like Microsoft Word. So there's going to be merge fields which represent the data. Now, if you're worried about this notation, please don't be. That placeholder is not something you have to worry about. You don't have to learn the syntax, because if I want to include a field in my merge document, then all I've got to do is go here and I drag and drop it in. So from a usability perspective, it's super easy to use. Now, even this table, now what I mean by the table, if I just go back to the email here, so if we go, I'm here with a number of opportunities from different customers, different prospects. The table is built here using this table builder, and what this allows me to do is, again, to drag and drop the fields onto this grid. I can then preview that, see what the table is going to look like, and then once I'm happy with that, then we're good to go. Now, this particular field here, I mean, we put this together just as an illustration for somebody who happened to be in the insurance business. So I was able to put an alias on this column if I needed to. So it's really, really easy to change that. If I need to change that to opportunity, I just type it in there and away we go, and it'll then preview with opportunity. Very, very easy to make changes. And the final step then is to actually send the email, and this looks just like an email dialog would look. You have a sender, you have one or more recipients, maybe a subject line. Now, the point here is that the sender and the recipient can be varied at runtime, and you're free to include variable data, again, coming from the data that you've queried, which can then just be dragged and dropped in here to form the name and email address of the recipient and so on. You can add subject information. There's no message body here because actually the message is coming from my formatted document. So that's a really, really easy task to put together. Something like this can be built in maybe an hour or two. But just to give you a quick sense of some of the other tools that are available, there are things like different versions of query. We can work with XML or flat file data if that's coming from another source. You can even run crystal reports here if you want, if there's a need to run reports and distribute those on a regular basis. And those documents then that you're creating here can be sent out by email. You can save them to the file, you can print them. And then we can even execute other people's software by running a program, running some script. We can connect to online services. I'll come back and talk about that in a few minutes. And then we have some specialist tools which allow us to connect and update different systems like Infor CRM. So that's a little bit about what a task is all about. Let's have a look at some other areas of functionality that are relevant to our scenario here, and that is what happens when a customer is acquired. In other words, when we close an opportunity. Now, in my scenario, what's going to happen here is that when we close the sales opportunity, before the account can get set up in our accounting system, or we can actually process this order, our accounting department needs to validate the account, perhaps if it's not already a customer, and once it's been approved, it can then come back, and then what will happen is once it is approved, then in this case Fisher Technology is going to change from a prospect to a customer, and we might even capture some additional information such as their credit rating, which you can see is blank at the moment. So just pay attention to the account type and the credit rating fields, because in a moment you're going to see those changed. Now, what's going to happen if I go back to my opportunity? I need to go through an approval process to do this. So the way I'm going to trigger that request is to mark this opportunity as closed won. Okay, so we just go through the prompts here, and then we're going to go ahead and save that. Now, once I save the record, if I just jump back here to TaskCentre real quick, you can see behind us that a request for new customer approval process is fired. Now, what this has done is sent out an email to the guys in accounting to say, hey, there's a new opportunity which has just closed. I need you to approve it. So here's the approval request email. You can see here that it invites us to click here to approve or reject this request. So let me go ahead and click through here, and we'll see that I've taken that opportunity information, extracted it out of SalesLogix, and present it to the user through this browser. Now, this happens to be Chrome, but it doesn't matter. You can use whatever browser you want. But the point here is, having abstracted this information, it now means that a non-SalesLogix user can be reviewing this. Now, I'm just showing this in the context of a customer approval, but it could be really anything that involves any kind of approval process. So you can see it's inviting me to put some information in. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put in an account number here. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to set the credit rating here to good, and maybe we'll put in $25,800 as a credit limit, perhaps, and I'll sign this off as accounting has approved it, let's say. Okay. Now, just before I hit accept, let's go back into TaskCentre real quick. Let's have a look and see how we actually got to that point. So the task that fired is this one right here, request new customer approval. So let me go ahead and double click on here. Okay, and here's what's happening. So the first thing that's going to happen is that by updating the opportunity in the CRM, that's caused a trigger, what's called a database trigger, to actually fire the process. So just before we talked about maybe using a schedule to fire the process, this can now invoke the process, cause it to fire when something is actually changing in the database, so almost immediately. So as soon as it fires the task, we need to go out to the database, collect the information relating to that opportunity. Now, we have to enforce certain business rules here, because if we're closing an opportunity for an existing customer, we don't have to go through the approval process. So we've got a decision point that says, as long as the account is a prospect, then we're going to proceed. If it's not, we're going to stop right here and not go any further. So I'm not going to go through the approval process unless this account is a prospect. If it is, we can proceed, and we're going to capture the opportunity information here. We're going to format the line details, and then we're going to submit the form as a request, and then alert the approver that that request is pending approval. The actual form that you see here, if I just jump back to Chrome here, so this web form, if you like, is generated in TaskCentre by using a tool that we call the Create Workflow Job. If I double click on here, you'll see the form is laid out not unlike the way you might build a form in, I don't know, maybe Access or even SalesLogix itself. The point here is you have a series of what are called controls, which you can just lay out on the form, and then you combined data to those controls. I mean, the point here is that there's no complex programming involved in creating this form. You don't need to know HTML or JavaScript or any of those fancy languages. All you need to know is how to create a form, and Customer FX can show you how to do this, or we can. So that's how the form gets created. So that takes us to this point here. So if I just take a breath for a moment, I go back to the accounting department, put my accounting hat on, I'm going to go ahead and accept this request. So let me go ahead and click on the button here. It confirms that the job's been submitted, but look, immediately behind me here in TaskCentre, you can see another process has fired called Approve Reject New Customer. So as that's going through, it's actually now going to update the account. It's doing that via an internal web service, and when that is complete, it's actually then going to send a couple of confirmation emails. First of all, one back to the account manager to let him know that that business has been closed, accounting has accepted it, and then we can also send a welcome pack, if you like, out to the customer, letting them know that their order has now been submitted for processing. So if I just go ahead and delete this email because it no longer applies. I mean, just to show you, I mean, if this email just sits here and I decide I want to click through that link again to try and reapprove it, it's actually going to tell me the job's expired. Because once it's been processed, you can't go back and do it again. So that email is now no good to us. But if I refresh my inbox, then two emails have been generated. One is the approval email that's been sent back to me as the administrator for this particular account, and in fact I can go and click in this link here, and it's going to take me to the Fisher Technology account. You'll notice that the account type here has been updated to customer, and if we just go here to the details screen, you can see in fact it's also captured the credit rating that I put in on the form as well. So this illustrates the ability to actually update sales logics from that web form as well. So there's actually some real database activity going on as part of these approval processes. Okay. And then just to close the loop here for you, there's the welcome kit that goes out to me, welcoming me as a valued customer, that my order has been accepted. Okay. So let me go ahead and delete these emails. So now that we have Fisher Technology as a valued customer, they then go into a customer service type role, and what may happen is maybe we've had some challenges with a particular product that we've shipped out to them, or there's a technical query that they need to raise. Excuse me. So what might happen is that they may send an email to me to say, help, I've got a problem. Can you sort it out for me? So I'm going to create an email. I'm just going to send it to my demo account here. And in the subject line, I'm going to say, help, I'm in trouble. Something is up with my system. It's the kind of email that all help desks like, because it's very descriptive of the problem. Anyway, this is a demo, so we don't really care about that stuff. But I'm going to go and send this email. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because you can see that as a result of me sending an email to with the subject of help, I'm in trouble, TaskCentre is able to pick up that email, process it, and you'll see by a second task that fired that actually it's created a ticket. But more to the point, we've also got some email notifications of what's happened. Well, first of all, it sent me back the same email, but that was just part of the closed loop here that I was using to simulate this. But we've got here an acknowledgement that the ticket was created, okay, with the ticket number and the subject, but the customer service rep has been notified as well, along with the ticket number. So if I click through here, all being well, that should pop up in the CRM. I might have to just give it a bit of encouragement here to show you that the ticket has in fact been created against the account, and you can see that the email of the subject has been written here to the subject of the ticket, and the message body is written here into the description. But of course you could capture other information about, you know, what the area, category, and issue might be of the ticket, depending on what other information you want to parse out from the email. If you're wondering how it determines which account to assign the ticket to, well, that's very simple. That's just doing a simple match on the email address of the primary contact for that account, and then when it matches, it knows exactly which account to assign this ticket to. That's giving you an introduction to what TaskCentre is about. The one thing that I skipped over earlier just to mention to you was one key feature here which we have, which I'm not going to get into now, but this, we'll perhaps deal with this in the subsequent session, is the ability to connect up to web services. Now the benefit there is if you wanted to use if you want to use Infor CRM in conjunction with some online marketing services, for example, MailChimp, or even HubSpot, then using the web service connectivity within TaskCentre, we're able to integrate your CRM system with that marketing service to run campaigns or to capture inbound leads that may be coming into your HubSpot portal and create leads and prospects in the CRM. Now I'm going to kind of throw that out there to see if there's something that might be of interest. Then please let Brianna or Scott know, and we can perhaps arrange a subsequent session, and we'd be happy to show you that piece of functionality working. But with that, I'm going to call it a day. I believe that there may be some questions. Let me just have a look here. Did you want to moderate here, Bree?
Yeah, Paul. I would be happy to, and we do have a couple questions, and I just want to let all of you out there know if you have a question, feel free to post that to the question pane, and we'll be happy to get that answered. And if for any reason we can't during this session, we'd be happy to follow up with you via email. But our first question, Paul, is, are there any out-of-the-box routines or examples for Infor CRM, or are they all built from the ground up?
That's a kind of a yes/no question, actually. I mean, clearly we've got some examples that are built here, some of which are taken from real customer use cases. Others we've just put together for demo purposes. Whereas some of these examples can be provided as a means of getting you started, what we generally find is that every single customer that uses TaskCentre also has some customization done to their CRM system to small or even very large extent, and very often the tasks that are being built for those situations involve supporting those customizations. So there's always a need, even with some of the pre-built tasks, to go back and make some modification to them. So I hope that answers the question.
Our next question, Paul, is this product available for the web version of Infor CRM 8.2 or higher?
Absolutely, yes, and that's a great question. And in fact, I'm using 8.2 here. The mere fact that I'm using the Windows client is purely convenience for us, because it's just what we're used to. We find it in demo situation it's actually easier to work with, but bear in mind that we're actually working with sales logics through the back end, through the provider, or accessing the database directly. So the client actually doesn't matter from a TaskCentre perspective, whether we use LAN or web. It's completely irrelevant from a TaskCentre perspective.
Great. Our next question is, are there SalesLogix or Infor CRM specific tools or applets?
Indeed. So we have here a connector for SalesLogix, which allows us to connect directly to the database. What that will let us do is, if we go back actually to my workflow example, here where we did update the account, is you can see here that the actual account is updated via this tool. And what this lets us do is choose any object within the database, and this will include any custom tables that you may have in your customized version, or user-defined fields that may be added to existing tables. But the point here is that it allows us then to update those objects, and you'll see we can perform the standard get, update, delete operation on those. So in this case, I'm updating an account, and you can see, you know, all the fields are available to me. But it also exposes the related tables. So if we want to add an account, we obviously have to have an address, we have to have a contact associated with it, and all those linked records are all available to me through this tool.
Okay, and there's a second part of that question is there a list of Infor CRM use cases?
I think that's probably a similar question to the one we had earlier in terms of, you know, what do you get out of the box with TaskCentre? Does everything have to be built from the ground up, or are there some examples provided? Yes, I mean, like I said, we have examples here that I've got, which we can make available to customers, to resellers alike, who may be interested in using these as templates to build fully working business use cases. But as I said, please bear in mind that most people have customizations, so there will need to be some changes made to support that.
Okay, our next question is, how is the product licensed?
Scott, do you want to take that, or are you happy for me to answer it?
Why don't you go ahead, Paul?
Okay, so there's TaskCentre is bundled, as you can see. Well, actually, I'm looking at the generic version here, but we have a version of TaskCentre which is actually surprisingly called TaskCentre for Infor CRM, and that's basically available on three plans. We have a standard edition, which allows us to have some basic functionality to be able to do things like alerts, reports, that kind of thing, with very, very limited capability to do very much in the way of updating. That's kind of the entry level. Then we have a workflow edition, which adds the workflow capability, which is what I use for the opportunity approval, and the ability then to also write back into SalesLogix using the connector tool. And then finally, there's the Enterprise Edition, which includes additional support for connecting to multiple databases. It includes things like web services if you do want to do integration with other applications, perhaps online services. But it also gives you the ability to add things like a connector tool for Microsoft Exchange or for Office 365 to allow you to share emails, merge contacts, set up tasks and calendaring items within your Office 365 account. And pricing is available from Customer Effects. I'll not get into a pricing discussion in this session.
I think you've answered the next two questions that came up, but one of the users was wondering, or customers is wondering, if TaskCentre interfaces with Infor XA or Mapix.
To a limited extent. With SAP, we have a connector for SAP Business One, which is specifically allows us to work within with any object within the Business One database. With other versions of SAP, like SAP for HANA or I think all-in-one by design, no, we don't have connectors for those. But when we get into other applications like Infor XA, Matrix, as long as we're able to get an ODBC connection to the databases, we can certainly read data. Writing back may be challenging depending on the APIs that are offered in those applications. But is there a connector for Infor XA and for Matrix? No, there isn't.
All right, our next question is this licensed per user or server?
It's licensed per server.
Okay. And our next one is, so do email manipulation / extraction and ticket creation, which version would be required?
So if you're wanting to handle inbound emails such as the support ticket that I demonstrated, typically that's going to be the professional edition because we need to write back to the database.
Thanks, Paul. Right now, that was the last question that we have. But if anyone thinks of a question later and would like to get that answered, you can email myself or Scott or info@customerfx, and we would be happy to follow up with Paul and get any other outstanding questions answered for you.